What's good, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Cultural Canvases, Black Men Reshaping Fine Art and Creative Spaces. I'm back again. I have another great guest. I'm excited to have it. This is our second time. The other time got crazy messed up from something else with the time, the computer, podcast, and all that stuff. But I got him back, the brother Marly McFly. Bro, what's good? Welcome back. Thank you for the time again. And yeah, man, I'm happy to have you here as always. I'm always checking in and seeing the dope stuff you're doing out there, man.
I appreciate it. So no problem at all. I'm glad to get this right.
Yeah, exactly. We wasn't going, do it if it wasn't done right. So I'm glad we got it, and just to make sure that people are seeing the great work that you're doing in the right light and, help promote what you're doing, man. Cause I'm a fan of yours. I love what you're doing. I love Zook. You know what I mean? I love everything about, that like everything that you got going, bro. So we was just talking about one of the most recent things before we dig into the history, the Umbrella Art Fair. So like, first of all, explain, is that a new fair? I never heard of the Umbrella one.
No, this is year four. It's DC based, put on by
Right.
DC artists and DC curators. So
Love. That's
yeah,
love. Like,
now
so what
down on.
what what uh what inspires you about, or how, I guess the better question would be, how do you see your work, or how does this fair, help shine a bright light on your work?
I think the work kind of reiterated and just reassured what I was shooting for in the first place.
Yeah.
I purposely had my work down lower to the ground to kind of get the eyes of kids. So just
Mm.
seeing the reaction of just when they hit that corner and just dart over to the wall. And it's just, I'm seeing kids looking at art the way I'm used to adults looking at it, just sitting back, taking in everything. And that's cool. Like literally on their knees, getting, into this piece. But
Yeah.
also the characters still relatable to adults.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see the adults, that kid coming out of the adults and the kids approaching the art the way adults approach art. So with all, it created this synergy that just, I wasn't even expecting.
Did any of those kids like follow you on Instagram, or is just one of those things where it just popped up on you and was just like, oh, this is fire?
Yeah, a lot of them was their first time experiencing, or running into me. It was one little girl who she saw me on a reel, and like her mom said, like she specifically wanted to come here to see you because she
Dope.
draws that way. So it's
Dope.
like kids are seeing themselves in the work,
That's
and
so
like I don't.
dope.
This is a direct quote. I hate when people say stuff like this because it
Yeah.
kind of puts me in a weird spot. But this one kid is like, finally some dope art. And I'm like,
Mm.
no, like don't put that pressure on me. It's a lot of us, but I appreciate that you see yourself in this type of art.
But I mean, that's got to make you feel great. I mean, like, even when we deal with the politics of the fine art world or
Yeah,
whatever we deal with now, to have the future look at you and say, "Yo, like, finally, I got something that's for me."
right.
I mean, that's got to make you feel as
Yeah,
an
yeah,
artist like you're in that right direction. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
That was the reason I do it in the first place. So
Yeah.
that reassurance, that opens up the door where I can educate you on some of my brothers. Take a right down the lane and chuck over there.
Yeah.
So it's it's definitely, it was dope.
How do you you said that when they walked up, they had a feeling like, like as if they knew what they were looking at, that they already been there. Do you think that's from, the social media aspect of, people finding art now? Or do you think, I mean, of course it was just a general interest in the dope work that you do, but the way that kids are approaching the work these days. It's not the same in museums, but they can
Right.
walk up on, graph artists, designers, street artists, regular painters that they can access with this understanding.
Right.
How do you see that as a well, like, do you see that as something new, or is it just something that, like you said, the kids finally seen something that they related to?
I think I think that plays a big part. Just social media in the way we're kind of accessible, but
Mm-hmm.
also just being available. Like for the most part, I was the only artist in my area there all weekend. So people are like, "Oh, dope! Like it's an actual artist here." But it's like they come to these fairs to interact with us, So it's like getting
Word.
to know me, asking questions. I'm getting, younger kids, students. They're like, hey, I like to draw. Can you give me some advice? Can I pick your
Yeah.
mind? Being accessible kind of tears that wall down.
Yeah. So there was other like creatives there, not just artists. I thought it was like, it's like like the traditional art fairs, the bars, you
Yeah,
go in there, you hang up like Butter Fair, which is also really good, and a
right.
few others. So there was other like designers and stuff there too.
It was all artists in the show, but
Mm-hmm.
just spectators who might they might design something or they
Word.
whatever they did in their respective fields.
That's what's
They were
up.
coming.
That's
So
what's up. So how
yeah,
did how does an art fair like that, how does that help with the, I mean, you're already known in your city and the region and even, the country and the world, for most, for that matter. How does having something like that happen in your city influence the or push forward the message in your work? How does, because it's got like I'm just blown away by that, and just amazed and enamored by you know that representation of the youth. You never really hear that when you walk into
right.
art. It's like they walked up and say, yo, like this is exactly what I want to see. How does that push forward your practice in a sense?
I think the location what played a big role
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of the people I ran into, it wasn't even on their plans to go to art fair. Like they were
Mm.
just in Union Market, saw that something was going on. Oh, cool! I got something to do on a Saturday, and it's like, wait, this is dope. Like
Mm-hmm.
I see art in passing, but I don't see this.
Hmm.
And like that was the trend all weekend. Like I don't see this. Like it's the even with my peers around me, it's like
Mm-hmm.
this one thing stood out to them, and like they could see that
Interesting. Like
they
how?
could see that I'm from the same background as them,
Yeah.
and that I'm doing stuff that interests them as well.
I think that's super dope. How does that attention as an artist differ from you having a show, or you're at a trade show where people
Right.
are focused on coming to see an exhibition, coming to see fashion or designs or whatever it is? How does that interaction differ for you
I
as
think
an
the
artist?
biggest difference is like when you're dealing with the gallery or a trade show that people wake up with the plan of this is my weekend. I'm going to view some art.
Mm-hmm.
You may gain someone who didn't know about you before, but you're just another artist in their kind of you know their directory.
Yeah.
Compared to someone like myself who grew up, you know, I don't really know much about art or the doors that it can open up.
Mm-hmm.
You just sparked something in someone who you didn't know you were gonna run into. They didn't know you about
Mm-hmm.
that as interaction with you, and they appreciate it a little bit more because it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I like the art, I like to draw too, but I didn't know
Yeah.
like that was a career path or something
Yeah.
I could do something with. Like that was an ongoing thing. Like
Mm.
kids with their parents, like their parents like, see, I told you you can do this. Like that's
Yeah.
somebody who looks like you, he dressed like you, he walks like you. He's not stiff and buttoned up. It's like he's just like you from the same place, and it's like that lasting impression
Mm-hmm.
sticks compared to a gallery where they still appreciate the work, but
Of
they also
course.
they've been here before.
Yeah, yeah. How, like, and going back to your youth, when did you see yourself as with the confidence that you could create something that your future self or the future you would appreciate, and you would also want to see as a kid yourself, creating
Right.
what's not there? When did you know that you had the ability to put these characters out into the world and just create for yourself?
Like drawing has always been something I did and could do. Just daydreaming in school or when I got home, just always doodling in the sketchbook.
Yeah.
But it did. I got away from that as an adult. Just out of college, taking different jobs. Quote unquote real jobs, trying
Mm-hmm.
to find my path in life. But it's like art was always that one thing I was passionate about. So it's like
Yeah.
if I'm going to put my time into stuff I don't care about, filling up this
It's a
resume
fact.
with things I don't want to do, let me put that same energy into what I actually love.
Mm-hmm.
So 2016 is when I went full time. Really started just hitting the ground, throwing stuff at the wall, see what sticks,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just been grinding out ever since.
What do you I guess what was your first set of materials? Did you start with like
Oh,
watercolor? Because it kind of like every time you go in a paint store, the
mhm,
first thing artists kind of see is watercolors. You might,
right.
if you go to Michael's, you might see some acrylics, some cheap ones there, and they're like, what were
Hmm.
your first materials, and how did you start to adjust and know that you were using
The
materials that could actually build something, create something?
the first thing I purchased, I didn't spend no more than $20. I got
Mhm.
like a 2 pack of like these cheap staple back canvas,
Yeah,
like gift set of like tiny paints from Walmart,
yeah,
and it. I put something together, and then I started gaining people's attention, and then like my first gallery, they're like, "Yeah, you got to step this canvas up like this." It was like a real thin canvas with the staple showing. And it's like let's get a little thicker canvas, some gallery material, and they like they. I was kind of learning as I went along, just taking that
yeah.
feedback. Like, okay, so I need the $100 canvas, not the $2 one.
So how long did it take you before you got that first canvas to actually interacting with the gallery, to kind of seeing that difference from the studio space to like, okay, this is where, this is a marketplace, like to
Mm,
where notice like, okay, well, damn, this $2 canvas versus this
right.
$100 canvas really makes a difference in the sale. When did that business side start to really hit you about art?
I think I started doing like the local like coffee shops, things like that, putting on my own shows. But it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't until I was a part of a gallery in LA. Like they saw everything through pictures,
Mm-hmm.
and then when they got it, it's like, yeah, these are really good with cheap materials. Like
Mm-hmm.
you just make this canvas a little thicker, add some texture, this will really jump off the wall. And like one of the things I've always been criticized like my entire life is like the art. It's so clean that it kind of looks digital at times, which I do
Mm-hmm.
digital work as
Mm-hmm.
well. But like a lot of my the canvas work, like just it doesn't really show well in pictures
Yeah. Yep.
until you're in person. So it's like let's try to add some textures and things like that.
How do you fight that? Because I mean, like, that's not something you control. You're just nice with the brush. How do
Right.
you fight that? Do you, like, was that something that you just started to come across recently, or was that something that you always felt gradually throughout the career?
Something I felt gradually. I think only really way to combat that is just you got to see it in person. So
Yeah.
like that's not really photography isn't really my thing, or just I can't really dictate how it shows up on camera, but come see it in person. Let's chop it up.
So when you say you've added different things to it, like, how did you get it to a point where it would jump off the canvas to a collector, to where it takes that digital feel out of it? Because I mean, you've done a few murals, you've done different type of work, you've done a lot of things that I've seen to where it changes how the characters look, even
Right.
from a camera standpoint. But what are some of the materials like canvas, excuse me, canvas wise, and in that way to where it helped build it out? Because like it seems like you got a lot of dope styles, and I'm interested in understanding how you got to where um, the mixed media was able to bring out
Right.
everything about the work.
Well, I think that's what made the canvases more appreciative. Whereas
Hmm.
when I started doing murals and actual digital work, you're like, okay, now I can differentiate and see
Hmm.
he can do all these things. It isn't just you know a digital image. So that made it more appreciative, where you can see that canvas compared to a mural and see, oh, okay,
Yeah,
that he is actually painting this. It's
yeah.
not you know just some digital image.
Has the digital side of your career given you a boost because of that? I mean, like with 2020 to like 2022 or 2022 and the half of the year, we were just inundated with the digital,
Right.
revolution with all of that. Had Was your work prime for that revolution, and or did how did people approach it, being when NFTs was there, fine art was there, and it
Right.
was this war, it seemed like, because I would think you would be right in the middle of that and being able to kind of put your foot on both sides,
Yeah.
you know what I
Like
mean?
my work was made for that because
Hmm.
I always kind of I saw work art through this like vectorized lens anyway, where I was
Mm-hmm.
drawing the way digital art looks.
Yes.
So now digital art is accepted. I can translate my illustrations into a digital print.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of been that bread and butter, affordable. You can't get the original, but this
Yeah.
$100 print is still a really good illustration.
Sure. For sure. Do you think that's a great continual way for artists to establish their practice? I mean, because we all know, like even in the high end market, 10%, with the blue chips and all of that, there's taking a hit. The markets are taking a real hit. Is being able to do prints and multiples that relate with the client, has that been your way? And do you see that as the way that artists really can participate in this economy? I mean, showing and exhibiting is one thing, but actually
Right.
making money in the arts economy has been, keeping a lot of artists at bay from doing a lot of stuff. Do you feel that's the best way for artists these days to, take that approach until,
Definitely. I think it supplements in between,
Mhm.
you know, commission work or gallery work, murals, things like that. That's something that you could just do one time
Mhm.
and then multiple people can buy.
Yeah.
Um, and it's appreciative. Like a lot of people, that is their gateway into art.
Yeah.
Like I've had people who
That's for
bought
sure.
2 or 3 prints. And that was like, okay, I'm a Marley collector now. I need an
Mhm.
original. Like
Mhm.
that print has built that trust. It's like, okay, he gets my stuff in a timely manner. It's quality.
Mhm.
Now I'm ready to fully invest in, a $3,000 painting.
Yeah, and I think that's a great, and the reason why I was asking that was getting to exactly what you were saying, because at that point you're building collectors,
Mm-hmm.
even with that, that young person that came up and say, wow, this is something that I'm looking for, I'm about, starting them off with a print. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, they might be able to, be in a position to buy 10 paintings, 5 paintings, because
Yeah,
they grew up, with you on that. um, I think that is just super dope. And how many collectors have taken that full journey with you? Can you remember off top, like just a few of them that have really transitioned into fully Marly McFly collectors from a print?
definitely. I have a few. When I was doing my one time
Yeah,
runs things, it's like, hey, I got 5 of these.
yeah,
Okay, now I need that 101 Marley. And then even this weekend, I've gained a lot of first time art buyers. Like I was their first piece. People buying stuff for the kids' nursery. Where it's like, all right, cool. This will be an artist he can grow up with. So it's like I got collectors who aren't even taking their first step yet. But it's like I am. It's good starting off art.
is it was it, or I guess, is it easier for an artist when you're doing prints and multiples to partner with a one-time run who does good work, or avant art, or any of these other brands that helps to bring it to a new audience, or help with distribution? Or is it easier in the beginning for artists to really understand that process, because understanding the paper, understanding the printing
Right.
process, understanding what is quality? Is it worth it for the artist to go through that process first, or is it just saying, what, I want to get this out in quality, let me take it to one time run, or sugar press, or one of those print houses that do good work?
Right. I would definitely try to go through the process first. I think
Mm-hmm.
all of us, starting out, we get like the cheap print run, that we really don't understand. We just you print your image on paper, but
Yeah,
we don't know. Oh, okay. I need like poster grade. I need archival. We just go to like Office Max or somewhere. So I
yeah,
was like, I think
yeah.
we should try to get that research, but then working with those companies that know like the standard for paper
Mm-hmm.
and you know
Has that,
screen,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
paper, screen printing, the different ways you can print a, produce a print. I definitely think that kind of elevates your art.
Yeah, and I was going to ask on top of that too, is like, on top of understanding the materials that are there, to be able to produce that quality, does that also help you with, again, understanding the business? Because, with partnerships and things like that, you're now seeing like, okay, now this production takes, I'm getting better quality, but now I'm also having a partner. I'm having to do these
Right.
things. something that, many artists are not, traditionally used to at first, because
Right.
it's more of a solo entrepreneur thing. I'm painting for someone, I have a client, I finish the artwork myself, and then if I sell it, or if it goes to a collector through donation or any other ways, or a museum, hopefully, it's always this one-way transaction in a sense. But
Right.
with the prints and multiples, and with many clients that I've worked with, and even with collectors that I've worked with, it seems as if you're creating this collective,
Yep.
like this collective of people that believe, but also it feels as if you're able to understand what it means to have inventory, what it means
Yes.
to get things in on time. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Yes.
Putting things in the right formatting, and
Hmm.
also time in the process. How has that helped you to, plan, prepare, and just handle business in that fashion instead of just a traditional artist way?
Yeah, I think the printmaking process actually has improved my work because now
Hmm.
I'm illustrating from a standpoint that it needs to be print ready. That line has to be crisp. That
Hmm.
this format has to be formatted to fit a 20 by 20 print. It's
Yeah.
the pixels got to be right.
Yeah.
Just finding that quality paper, finding the printer that can match the ink colors the proper way
Hmm.
without muting it out or making it saturated. So learning that side of the business is actually making everything better, kind of run together.
What do you think is the most enjoyable part of the business? The creation of the work, or the reaction when people receive the work?
Ah, I'm gonna go 50-50. Like
Hmm.
I always,
Okay.
I mean, whether if no one sees it, I genuinely just love doing what I do.
Yeah.
But that reception of someone who just might have been just mind completely closed to art,
Hmm.
just seeing something spark in their head, especially people from my same background, where it's like, I might know what they do on their recreational time. It's like,
Yeah.
yo, that's fire. It's like, oh, you appreciate it. That means a lot.
Facts. Facts. At what point in your career do you think you made your biggest jump? What was that exhibition, that piece of art, that trip or whatever? Do you think help you make your or take your biggest leap in your career?
I think the biggest leap was after Basel 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Just seeing so many different styles,
Mm-hmm.
and not even like taking it in from just like an art standpoint, but a finishing standpoint, like
Mm-hmm.
a quality, the craftsmanship. That's when it's like, okay, I see I can't just draw something, put it on the canvas, sell
Yeah.
it. It's like that presentation and craftsmanship,
Mm-hmm.
that taking pride in a final product.
Mm-hmm.
That's what really got the ball going.
Do you know what work, or what type of work it was that really hit your eye? And because I asked this because I've covered Basel for a while, and I always talk with first time artists after they've gone, and they always have this one work where they'll say, "Yo, like I saw this work, and it immediately made me want to run back to the studio." You know what I mean? Or
So,
immediately wanted me to just go get new paints or a new paintbrush or something. You know what I mean?
right, I know the Dean collection.
Mm-hmm.
They had a show with Hebrew, the one with
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
yeah, you know which one. And
Yep.
it's like he's doing what I like, very clean.
Hmm.
Just this whole room, this whole setup, just it's you could tell it's someone who took a pride in what they
Yeah,
did and they love what they do,
yeah.
and that really hit home.
So how does that's a good segue. How does you know people like Hebrew, and others that transition into from painting to toys to public art, how does seeing their process, how do you align with, not having the same goals as them, but understanding that trajectory is possible? How do you align your works, your career, or even trying to get different opportunities,
Right.
um, thinking in that way after seeing those type of things? What's your first mindset as an artist of like, seeing that like, damn, I didn't know that, my design could be a 10-foot sculpture. I didn't know
Right.
that I could do, a large 80-foot canvas, or not 80-foot, but like, 80-inch canvas, or 8-foot canvas, or in some cases 80-foot mural.
8 foot might work.
You,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Um, what was your first thought after, recognizing that?
I think the first thing, that same what I'm giving younger artists or just kids who are not even into art, it's like, oh, these things are possible.
Yeah.
I'm immediately a fan the same way when I see
Yeah.
those things. Oh, so like the toys I play with, that like people put that on their mantle, like that's they view that as art too. So it's like
Yeah.
I'm coming up seeing the things I love being
Yeah.
created into art by someone who's probably like minded just like myself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like I don't really see it as like I'm following in the shadows or competition or anything. I see all that as reassurance. Like
Yeah.
what I want isn't crazy. It's all obtainable. And I
Yeah.
think every artist should look at it that way. I hate seeing like two artists with similar mindsets, like, oh, he copied me or he this,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, no, it's just you were kind of reassuring that this thing we all want is possible.
How did it feel when you seen like you go, you see a Hebrew piece, you see toys, you see others create super dope toys with the kid robots and all this other stuff,
Mhm.
but then you'll see what seems to be like a rabbit with like Jeff Koons, with his thing in
Right,
that same thing, or then you'll see a cause piece. These things are going in that fine art realm for millions of dollars. Do
right,
you see the Hebrews, potentially Marley, and all those being able to reach that, just that culture, being able to reach that pinnacle as a whole culture, to where we'll be looking at, hopefully in 2040, whoever had the first Marly McFly toy, you know what I
right.
mean? And,
Yeah,
that's worth, on the same on the market as, a Henry Taylor painting, for instance, or, it goes to auction in that same way.
right,
Because I think of prints and multiples, like I think of the sculptures, when it comes to these things. And these toys, some of them are becoming very, very rare, you
right.
know. How do you see that, or do you see that growing into a big piece of the market?
Yeah, that's definitely something I'm aspiring towards, and
Mm-hmm.
also with a lot of younger people, being introduced to my work now, I would love for that art to grow with them. Where it's
Mm-hmm.
when I finally get to that point, they're now in a place where they're affording stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest things right now. Where it's like a lot of the people who love my work, it might be like a 15-year-old where it's like
Mm-hmm.
that $100 print might be that's like a month's worth of money
Yeah,
for
let's
him.
say that's allowance money right there.
Right. So I definitely want my audience to grow with me while
Mm-hmm.
continuing to serve those who are already here.
Yeah. How do you see your work, toys and all of that, aligning with the old school toys? And I say that because like I'm a WWE fan, or WWF, I should say.
Right.
And I was, looking back, and I still have like some old Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan little toys. And I just was thinking like, what would be the toys of our generation, for 20 years from now, to where this generation looks back and say, man, I remember the WWE wrestling buddies, or
Right.
I remember my buddy, or any of these type of, characters. Um, how do you see, or how do you, the better question should be, how do you ensure that your toys are, your characters become memorable, and that they continue to touch those collectors, because it's the collectors that identify and let
Right.
us know what's timeless. How do you keep your practice surprising and bringing joy to kids that walk around the corner? Because that's what
Right.
I look at WWF and the Nintendo 64s and the
Right.
Genesis and all
Yep.
those. They did that for a whole generation. How do you make your
Right.
work generational in that sense?
I think from a design standpoint of the characters. Like
Mm-hmm.
Zook, for example, it's a modern character that has a nostalgic feel. So he's already transcending two eras. It's
Mm-hmm.
like new kids, they they just love him in the current time.
Mm-hmm.
Then people our age or older, they're like, that reminds me of Astro Boy or
I think of
uh
Paperboy every time I see it.
like it's like they always I hear different things of our time of who that reminds them of.
Yeah.
Plus his shoes and the way he dresses, it's like, oh, that those are the Jordans that came out in '89, and he kind of reminds me of Astro Boy. He kind of
Yeah.
built like Bart Simpson, or it's like, so it's already kind of transcending
Mm-hmm.
generations. Like someone told me he reminded him of Steven Universe. I don't even know who that is, so it's
I was
already
like,
like
who is that?
right. So it's already hitting new, like it's like new generations are finding familiarity in it.
Yeah. How do you think, or, and it's crazy because sometimes I'll be wanting to ask three questions in one. Um, what do you think is the next step for, the growth of toys, the growth of artists making toys, and how does art fairs like an Art Basel uh, have impact in a different way than like a designer con for an artist like you?
That you said designer con before I even like I was already thinking there. Designer con is doing for toys what
Mm-hmm.
Basel did for art, and I
Okay.
think when more cons are popping up, like there's Collector
Mm-hmm.
Con in Chicago. As more of these are popping up, it's kind of expanding the same way we now have Freeze or Art on Paper and all these different art fairs. So now you're getting all these toy fairs that are doing the same thing for toys
Mm-hmm.
that the fairs are doing for art. So I see this resurgence where toys kind of took a hit for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's coming around where these fairs are again putting the art and the toys as the main focal.
Yeah, I've seen certain toy companies. Like I've had the opportunity to cover designer con for years, thanks to good friends at Hijinks, um, and I've seen so many different things to where toy companies almost take the role of galleries,
Yeah.
in these spaces. Like there's one company from Japan who I always see. They're like, I think it's Tai something, Taiko, Taito, something like that. But they
Mm-hmm.
always have super dope toys, and they always have a
Right.
super dope booth. And I looked and was like, man, this takes the form of Art Basel in a sense where, but
Yep.
I guess the difference from Art Basel is that they're also individual artist booths, they're individual artist
Right.
sections where
Yeah.
artists as entrepreneurs are actually debuting some of the dopest toys, some of the dopest prints, some of the dopest ideas that aren't represented by those larger toy companies or these larger brands. Um,
Right.
how does how does these opportunities how do these opportunities um, bring confidence in the practice, and how does an artist go to these fairs and prepare for something like that, as opposed to going to Art Basel? You have your gallerists working for you. You have some collectors that are already interested here and there,
Right.
and there may be a chance for one person to walk away with the original artwork, as
Right.
opposed to a designer con where you could have 50 toys or
50 people
seven
just told.
different
Right.
variations. How
Yeah.
does the preparation for something like that take place?
I think it's a pretty similar approach. When you're getting ready for a trade show, Basel, any kind of art show, you want to put your best work out to be displayed.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be present. You want to touch the people, tell your story. Like
Facts.
you're selling you, and that item is just an extension. So that
Mm-hmm.
toy is the same way. Where it's like you need to be able to talk to why this toy exists,
Mm-hmm.
and like how it you know how it connects to people. It's
Yeah.
like, did you just like art? Like, did you just throw some colors on the wall and hope it sell, or what's the reason behind this?
It's very interesting you put it that way too, because when you go to Basel's Untitled, Scope, all those fairs at Basel, or Art Basel Miami, I should say. Everybody thinks Basel is
Yeah,
the
yeah,
whole thing, so
right,
I got to clear that up. But it's usually the curator or the gallerist
right.
talking about
Mm-hmm.
the work, and at Designer Con and Comic Con and a lot of these places, you're right. You usually get direct conversation with the creator, which
Yep.
they can go deeper into detail of their love for comics and how they got started from the back end of looking at the Superman 1 comic and seeing something in the
Exactly.
background that inspired this, and they'll break it down for you. Yeah, these shoes I
Yeah.
got from this comic, or this type of fire, or the way they did these backgrounds I got from this comic. It's much more um explanatory, in a sense.
Yeah.
Like you get the conversation in those design, toy, art, you know, collaboration fairs than you get in a fine art fair. The fine art
Hmm.
fair, in that case, it's like, okay, you're supposed to know, what
Right.
it's about. You're not
Exactly.
supposed to go there and learn, and that's
Learn.
what I don't like about those fairs. It's like no one has the time to talk to you
Right.
unless you're trying to make a transaction, or as if you're going to write
Hmm.
something to their benefit. In
Right.
the art, design, toy fairs, they have nothing but time to talk to you.
Nothing but time, and it's usually you're in contact with the actual artist or
Yeah.
the main, or like it's someone who put the love into that. Whereas with a lot of those fairs, you're meeting the representative who may not give you the time of day unless you're ready to make a purchase.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of gallerists, miss out. One of the things when I've ran booths during our Basel at different fairs, I love to talk to the people.
Yeah.
People that have followed me or followed the artist, and just like to see what did they think about it. How did they
Yeah.
come across it? How did they um, what else did they collect?
Hmm.
How else do they approach? Even at Designer Con, I talked with a few people and watched a few people make some sales and just taking photos and doing press runs and things like that, and you can just see the direct hit of a sale. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Like
Hmm.
immediately when someone's, you know, I'll take that, and a person's putting it in a box and bagging it up. That
Right.
gratitude, that immediate, I can fucking pay my bills type of
Right.
thing, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
comes up. And it's just it's a great thing.
Hmm.
And I don't see that at a lot of the fine art fairs. Now I'm not saying that
Yeah.
it doesn't happen, because there are plenty of artists that are getting opportunities and are freaking appreciative,
I'll say
but yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead, bro.
outside of Umbrella, the only one I've really had like that hands on, where I, got to touch people, make the transaction was the other art fair in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm. They do good
And
work too there.
I like that format. I know a lot of artists that's not their strong suit. Their strong suit. I guess because I came from like a retail background, I
Mm.
naturally just go back into that mindset of like, you coming into my store, I welcome you. Let me know if you got any questions or what can I help you with. It's just that natural. I get back into that feeling.
Yeah.
Like,
Do you
so
think
for
that?
me,
I'm sorry to cut you over, but this is. Do you think that has helped you with being able to
100,
expand your brand? Because a lot of artists can't do that.
100%. Just me seeing. Take for example, working with Nike.
Yeah.
Me seeing the marketing that goes behind one
Mm-hmm.
specific product line. So it's like, okay, cool. I need to create that awareness, create that hype, create that need, create that want. There's different, avenues where I can tell the story behind this product, whether
Yeah.
that's, Instagram posts, whether that's, a write up, a commercial. I'm seeing all the things that go into one product, and I'm stealing what I can
Yeah.
to tie into my art.
Man, I think that's like that reminds me of when I always hear the Rich Paul and Maverick Carter story.
Mm-hmm.
When they got a chance to intern at Nike, intern at, I think it was William Morris agency that Rich Paul did, or one of the agencies that were representing large clients, and it gave them the confidence to be able to tackle those projects the same way you were just talking about. So going to an Art Basel, is a confirmation in a way that a lot of artists don't see, because then it's like, damn, okay, I have this experience of working with these brands. Now here is just that forum I can apply it to. Now, how do I
Yeah.
see my brand being presented with an exhibition booth, with
Right.
the right colors. Because the same
Mm-hmm.
way, like you said, you go to trade shows, even in regular corporate world, they go to, if you're selling, light fixtures, or you go to, consumer electronic
Exactly.
shows, it's the same way, being
Yep.
able to have that retail mindset. And I think also, you bring up that with the great point of, maybe gallery attendance should have that background, like, because it's
Definitely.
one of those things where it's like, you have to know how to greet customers. You have to know how to,
Mm-hmm.
make people feel welcome in receiving the product that you're trying to sell,
Right. Right. You think about how many galleries or booths you've passed, or you were interested in a product, and you just got this cold experience,
Mm-hmm.
and that might not even have been just this person. They might just don't know any better,
Yeah.
or they're not even used to like the fact that you need to go out and actually make people welcome to make
Mm-hmm.
a sale. They're just thinking, I need to be here, and when you need something, I'm here to answer a question.
Yeah. And I mean, in a lot of those spaces too, they have, these preordained lists. And
Mm-hmm.
there are people that, they make appointments. They're there, for the nice red carpet treatment, the white wine treatment, and all of that, the fine art world stuff. But, I've always been an advocate for the walk-ins, like, just
Yes.
like you said at the umbrella fair, when people can walk up and, decide, what's good for them. I think if galleries were more open in that approach, they could build a new collector base, a new um, opportunity for someone else to become part of that artist's repertoire. And I mean, I understand why they do certain things in the fine art world. I've been in it for a while. There's things for security, there's things for legacy, there's things for protection.
Right.
Because unfortunately, not everybody knows what to do with $100,000 painting, or how to secure it, and things like that.
Right.
So I think your process of gradually bringing people through that process so they can get to that point is very, very, very rewarding in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Not just for the collector, but for a gallerist, because
Yeah.
they know that you understand what it takes to deliver the proper sale.
Right. Yeah. Like I say, at least 40% of the sales I made this weekend, they didn't plan on buying anything, but just through conversation, being present, answering questions, it's like,
Yeah,
I'm gonna take that print home.
yeah,
Or it's like I'll see someone leave, come back, like I thought about it, man. Like I gotta have that.
that's dope,
So
man.
it's like just that conversation. You never know what it'll spark.
Yeah. How how have people responded to, um, I guess, the your work in different venues? And I don't mean just like murals, but it's like when you go to a fair, like a DC fair, and you
Mm-hmm.
DMV artists. It's more, it's local, it's people they
Right.
understand and all that. But if you travel to a Miami or another, how have other regions picked up your work, and how has it fit in other spaces? Are you able to guide the spaces that you want your work in, or are opportunities to try new things popping up? And if so, how did they go? How did you see your work in those?
A little both. Both me kind of picking where I wanted to go, as well as it being embraced in different places.
Mhm.
With DC, I'm really the only one doing things the way I do it.
Yeah,
So that it's kind of a fresh take, where it's like I'm kind of just in my own lane, doing
yeah,
toys, prints, skateboards, whatever. Just bright colors,
yeah.
black kids in just in their purest form. That's different. I see like New York and Chicago. I feel right at home.
Hmm.
It's like they've seen that before, and like that's kind
Mhm.
of what they expect from art. It's like this approach, the different avenues and directions that I take the art. They kind of they're used to that. They want that. So it is interesting seeing the reception everywhere I go.
Have what's I guess what's been the most received? Has it been canvas work? Has it been prints? Has it been different mural works? Where has people been able to really um, jump into understanding who you are as an artist and being able to identify your work?
I think the recent print work is what's really clicking. I'm just seeing them beside each other, and this
Mm-hmm.
like this seeing the story in the world expand.
Mm.
People have received that well. Um, I know that's just most because I haven't really showed the newer stuff in a full body collection on canvas that much yet. Just just kind of taking building the world out, seeing how things play out. I haven't really got that into a full gallery show yet. So the prints has really received the best reception.
How how important is it for you to have a gallery represent you? Like I see, you know, your work. We talked about Hebrew,
Mhm.
and I think of artists like Daniel Arsham, Henry Teller, even Jeff Koons, Kehinde Wiley, for that matter, that
Right.
have studios. Um, how is how is how important? I'm sorry, I couldn't get the question. How important is it to have that representation versus having a studio that can produce high quality works in the same marketing style as a gallery? I hope I'm sounding,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I think galleries kind of play a marketing role where it's
Hmm.
like if they sell something, that's great. We made some money together.
Hmm.
But for the most part, that's kind of people just see you as an artist and assume you're supposed to be in a gallery.
Hmm.
So it's like, all right, cool. I'm in a gallery. You happy? Like
Yeah, yeah,
that made you more reassured that you're you're investing in something worth investing because you saw me in this building. So it's kind of
yeah,
you're both you're both working with each other. The gallery's giving you marketing. That's something to put on your resume. People see it and they feel better about you. But the way the world has changed so much and we're
hmm,
so front facing, we're accessible, we're able to reach out to people. You can reach out to us. Like there's not too many artists that I know of that you can't just ask a question and they just
hmm.
you know I'm good. It's like those are the artists who are way up there, and at that point, it doesn't matter who they work with. They're good. But
Yeah, and
for
what
some,
made me think about that, like, I mean, I mentioned the Cahindes and all that is, one of the new designers that I've, no, not really new, but one of the ones that I've appreciated, recently is Salehi Bembury. And,
yeah,
a homie of mine builds stuff from another artist who's, also a carpenter, does amazing stuff with just building materials and frames and all this stuff. Just an amazing artist. But talking about the stuff that he was just building for the studio, and I thought about that, was like, that's what a lot of artists truly need. Like they need studio visits, not necessarily gallery shows. And I
right,
say that because a gallery show, it yes, sure, it gives that collector that confirmation, that legitimacy, like, okay, this is a quote unquote real artist or whatever.
hmm,
But after you have that one show or that one collector, how beneficial is that gallery for the
right,
growth of an artist? And that's one of the
hmm,
things that, being a former gallerist, being, you know, someone that still deals in art and all that, is, that business model is somewhat dead,
right,
because there's no true education, besides business education, and people are learning on the job, in
yeah,
galleries. Um,
hmm,
but a studio for an artist after that, and being able to have, the assistants, being able to have, people that can control print housing and things like that, seems to be the more lucrative and return on investment, for an
yeah,
artist. Because if you're going to spend the money out on studio time and all of that to still have to give away a percentage at a lower
right.
price, where does this start making sense?
Exactly. Yeah, I think
You know?
if you're in a position where you can sustain a studio, I think that's the way to go. Where
Yeah.
you can you know set up your own shows. You can make it more personal. Come by appointment.
Hmm.
I think having that extension of yourself, collectors really do like that.
Yeah.
and they see that they see you in your element and see that you're serious about your craft as well. So that's a little more reassuring than this gallery said you should invest in as artists.
Yeah, that's what I would think. I mean, like I've been fortunate enough to have visited, a lot of artist studios and been blessed that they would even invite me. Um, but it's always it's that designer con connection,
Mm-hmm.
when you go to the studio, because they're not in a rush. You're not
Yeah.
in a rush. You're known to be there. Um, just visited a collector friend's home. Um, T going through the history of works of his father. Amazing experience. Got a chance to really talk about some things that we wouldn't have if I'd have met him at a show of his father's work or in the
Right.
gallery. Just
Mm-hmm.
because there isn't enough time for that because there's so much going on.
So much
Um,
going on.
and then I feel like that is well in the traditional gallery space, even if there's an opening night or even if the artist is there during the day, there's so many people that either want photos, want 5 minutes, um,
Right.
to where there are a lot of fabricated connections, that
Yeah. Yes.
don't
Yes. Yes.
carry into collecting. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um,
Right.
they they don't there's not enough time for someone to really understand a lot of this work. Like when I'm traveling to Art Basel and a lot of these fairs, I can't say that immediately I understand all of the work that I've saw.
Yeah.
That's why I take the photos, go back, relook, repost, and things like that, because I'm moving so fast through it. Same thing with gallery shows and all of that. But with an artist studio, I'm able to retain so much more about that artist, about that artwork, about that series,
Yeah.
to where I feel like I'm doing the artist the due diligence, paying the respect
Right.
to the work.
Yeah.
You know
I
what I
think
mean?
cool thing about studio visits as well is, yeah, you see what they're working on, but you also get to pick up on their atmosphere, like the
Mm-hmm.
things around that inspire them and what makes them tick. You know, I think Saladin does a great job of that studio
Mm-hmm.
is him.
Yeah, him. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the homie. I've known him forever. Like
Yeah.
he, it's it's one of those things to where it's like you have to make your space your space. And
Mm-hmm.
with the gallery, you're stepping into for a lot of people a different identity. You know what I mean? For a lot of people, the gallery is just not them. The
Right.
personality, the people that go to galleries, um, everything about standing there. I mean, it's sometimes it's a stage fright thing, for people.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's just an uncomfortability. A lot of artists are introverts.
Yeah.
They
Definitely.
want to just paint. I've heard a lot of artists say like,
I know.
I I only have a gallery because I just want to paint. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I don't want to deal with the other shit. You know.
Yep. I
So
think uh, I think a lot of artists need to we're kind of just programmed that we should be in a gallery, but I think a lot of artists don't even know why they want to be a part of the
yes,
gallery. How to,
yes,
or they're just like they see a gallery, so they reach out. It's like, what to you? Do you think that makes sense for you? Like, what, why there? Like any gallery I've approached, I've seen
hmm
my style in that gallery.
yeah.
I see what we can do for each other. So it's not just like there's a gallery. Can I get in here? It's like,
Well, there's also a miseducation about the gallery system too. Like people don't understand like galleries don't have to put your work up. Like there's a lot of
right?
artists that go and say, well, I'm an artist, you're a gallery, you're supposed to be looking out for new artists. That's always, the thing. Oh,
Yeah.
you don't look out for new artists. It's like, well, when you go to look at real estate, are you mad at developers because they're not putting new people in the neighborhood, or they're not giving you know new people a chance to buy? No, like they're looking to fill whoever can get
Whoever.
that rent paid. It's the
Right.
same thing with the gallery. When they open those doors, those
Mm-hmm.
walls become real estate. And I
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah.
explain that to artists and collectors, because one of the things that artists will say is that shows are only up for 2 weeks,
Right.
or shows sometimes are only up for a month, when a Gagosian, Hauser and Wirth, some of the big blue chip galleries will have their shows up for 3 months, sometimes 5, 6, depending on who the artist
Mm-hmm.
is. And you have to explain to them that they could justify that, because if the paintings are for sale, one painting pays 2 years rent.
Right.
Like, their goal to keep that up there is to keep shuffling in those collectors,
Mm-hmm.
that have the capacity to potentially own that work. Now, having that work of the, not that artist, but the artist that we were talking about, the former artist, the one that's, trying to get into a gallery, can you
Right.
justify for that gallerist that you can help them pay
Mm-hmm.
rent? Because if
Right.
they take that chance on you, they may not be able to open their doors next month.
Exactly.
You
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, like that was something I learned early on. Where it's like, all right, cool. I don't understand why my $2,000 painting isn't going to this gallery. It's like, well,
Mhm.
if the rent is 30,000, what is a $2,000 painting going to do?
Yeah. And it's a lot of artists. I understand, how they can feel as if, there's no shot. I
Yeah,
I have no chance.
right.
These galleries are not taking my work. Um, how has, you know the rejection factor of going to galleries and understanding, hey, my artwork may not be for that, but let me find the place for me. How did that funnel you or guide you to the space you are now, being an entrepreneur, being able to find out how working with brands has helped
Right.
you grow your business, help grow your practice? How does that fuel that drive to do that?
I think the rejection along with me coming up in this era where I'm seeing the artists I look up to do things different ways,
Hmm.
that all helped fuel me. Where it's like, oh, so all right, cool. That they don't mean that gallery, but I see he just did a show at like some random warehouse or something. It's like some store they closed. So it's like, oh, anything can be a gallery
Hmm.
if you make it a gallery. So just taking that approach and finding other avenues of where the art can be appreciated. It's like this bar has a pretty dope backdrop.
Yeah.
They got some blank walls. Let's make it work.
What's some of the exciting places you have for your work to be shown coming up, or what's a place that you would love to show some work at that you haven't yet,
Mm,
or that's just out there that people haven't even thought of yet?
I think going back to Designer Con, I
Hmm.
think that kind of sparked my interest of doing like a toy store like tour. There's
Mm.
the art factors into the surrounding of a toy store. Look at somewhere like Toy Tokyo. I can't think if they
That's
got
the
walls
name
or
of the
not.
company. That's the name of the company
You,
I was thinking of.
you think about that setting with art on the walls,
Yeah.
if that's possible. I know that they got toys everywhere, but take that setting, put art on the walls. That's now a gallery that also
Yeah.
has toys. So that's a not a traditional approach that still could give me the same results.
Hmm.
And that crowd is who appreciates my work anyway. So now you got people who love what I love, who
Hmm.
also have interest in what I do, all coming together in the same place.
Do you think that it's it's possible to have an art gallery, toy store, comic book store all in one, and why?
Absolutely. I think the closest to it may be Bait.
Hmm.
I think Bait does a good job of, you know, producing toys and clothing and still having quality art on the walls as well. And working with artists to collab on different projects. Um, I feel like, just me growing up going to a comic book shop, it might just be some hole in the wall store.
Hmm.
I think the walls are always neglected. It's like as we're getting older, those same people who collect these books,
Hmm.
they also have an interest in art. Whether it doesn't have to be any fine art, you could do like if it's superhero art, if it's a comic book shop,
Hmm.
or the same artists who are in those books put their work on the walls.
Hmm.
That's a
Hmm.
no brainer. So it definitely could happen.
That was going to be one of my questions too. Was there First of all, it was going to be what was your favorite comic growing up, and then which one of the comic book artists have you ever seen any of the comic book artists work in real life, and how did that impact you if you saw it?
Um, both answers go the same. My favorite was X Men from '92. Like X Men #1, I might have bought that same book like 10 times over
Yes.
the course from having the original as a kid to growing up needing to replace it like
Yeah.
that Jim Lee run, and then like I met him. I met him at the weirdest. It was like a pop up in DC on like a random Tuesday. Like DC Comics did a pop up in front of the newspaper gallery,
Yeah.
and it was like the secret thing. Like, oh, Jim Lee's gonna be in town, and it was like 5 of us out there waiting for him. And I'm like, is he really gonna be here? Because it seems like more people should be here.
Yeah.
And he was just in there, just he kicked it with the 5 people who were there, and signed a couple books,
Wow.
and just like seeing that line work in person, and just also knowing like his story of like how he left Marvel, and how like him and Todd McFarlane they got together and was working on things, just how they changed the comic industry and the way things were done.
Mm-hmm.
That same can be said for where a lot of the artists are changing the traditional approach to the art world.
Hell yeah. So what do you got coming up on the horizon that people should be aware of and should be preparing for and getting their wallets ready to get something from you for?
Right now, I'm prototyping the next toy. That's the big thing. Prototyping the next toy and kind of getting that refresher for next year. This is that time where you kind of got to hunt for the next opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
It's always that weird time for me because I like to go, and it's kind of that time where people are coming down right now.
Yeah.
And kind of back at the top of the year. It's like there's still 2 months left. Like let's make something happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, holidays is a good time for prints though. So that has worked out where I finally have made that online presence of I think this is a dope print for my brother, or I need to get something for my nephew. So that is cool that I have that, but I like to have my hands in so much that this slow time really, I just lock in and just start on the next collection.
Hell yeah. But yeah, brother, you gotta end it on there. This is just part one. We gotta still talk some more, man. I got a bunch of different stuff, and especially when you're releasing stuff, we gotta talk about that. So,
Definitely.
man, like I'm glad we were able to get this conversation off, man. Like we've been trying to do that. I think it's been a couple of months after the other one with the record, and
Right.
oh man, but I think this one was a better overall conversation for the folks that are watching. I think y'all would enjoy this one so much better because so much more has happened in this brother's great career since then. But yeah, y'all, this has been another episode of Cultural Canvases. I'm Badir McCleary. That's the brother Marly McFly. Be sure to check out all his work. Follow him. Let them know where your website is, bro. So they can all check everything out and get ready for the holidays and
Hey,
sell
Marly
you out.
McFly. Yes, MarlyMcFly.com. Come get a print, a
Definitely.
hat, a T-shirt. Said I'm the one-stop Zook shop.
For sure, for sure. That's been another episode of Cultural Canvases. We catch y'all next time. Peace.